Because they are similar in appearance to gargoyles, one theory is the Chupacabra were native to medieval Europe and were brought to South America on Spanish galleons. In Puerto Rico, some believe the Chupacabra is the product of a genetic experiment by a secret US agency. According to this theory, the creatures escaped when the government laboratory at El Yunque Mountain was damaged during a severe storm in the early 1990s. Most cryptozoologists believe the Chupacabra to be a close relative of the Ii, a primate from Madagascar that resembles a raccoon. Others speculate that Chupacabra are alien creatures. On occasion, there have been UFO sightings at the same location as Chupacabra attacks. In his 1893 book, The Wilderness Hunter, President Theodore Roosevelt wrote of two trappers who were reportedly stalked, and one of them killed, by a tall bipedal creature with a strong wild beast odor. Some believe it was the first written account of Bigfoot killing a human. Some believed this carcass was that of a giant beaked whale. However, recently it has been suggested that the long neck and cylindrical beak of the creature are inconsistent with the physiology of a whale. These findings lead some to conclude that it might have been a plesiosaur. In 1963, while on a hunting trip, Harland Ford filmed this tall, hairy creature lurking in the distance. It was the first alleged documented evidence of the Honey Island swamp monster. No definitive conclusion about the footage was ever reached, though Harland claimed to discover evidence of the creature for the next 13 years. The Loch Ness Monster is the most famous of all lake monsters, with sightings dating back to the 6th century. Early reports variously describe Nessie as a monster fish, sea serpent, or dragon. Ogopogo is believed to live in Okanagan Lake in Canada. Alleged to possess a horse-like head and a snake-like body, the beast was once reported by over 30 people on the same day. Lake Champlain, Vermont is home to Champ. This gigantic water serpent has over 300 alleged sightings. While scientists have theorized that climate change played a role in the Megalania's extinction, many claim that the real impetus for the death of the Megalania was man. Aborigines arrived on Australia approximately 48,000 years ago, and the Megalania and other megafauna of the region suddenly died out around the same time. While on expedition in the rainforests of Cameroon, naturalist Ivan T. Sanderson reported that he and his hunting party were strafed down upon by gigantic bat-like creatures. Sanderson noted that the creatures were black as coal with membranous wings and long, sharp teeth. The creatures were known by native lore as the Olitiao. Sanderson himself deemed them the granddaddy of all bats. The Owlman and West Virginia's Mothman are two of cryptozoology's most enduring mysteries, and eyewitness accounts report eerily similar qualities. Both are reported to be winged bird-like humanoids 5 to 7 feet tall with wingspans of about 10 feet. Each have large, glowing red eyes and are typically sighted in communities near wooded areas. Both have been associated with paranormal activity and UFO conspiracy, and the origins of both creatures remain unknown. The intestinal fluids of an anaconda are able to break down bone and teeth, but they are not able to digest hair and claws, which are excreted along with uric acid waste. Even though these predators are able to break down hard objects, surprisingly, they are unable to digest most plant matter, which passes through the system largely untouched. In 2006, scientists were able to conclusively determine that the so-called Tong child, the remains of an early human ancestor, was actually killed by an eagle. 80 years after the discovery of the 3.5-year-old child's remains, Scientists concluded that distinctive markings on top of the child's skull and in the eye sockets must have been made by a large raptor. This new information has quieted some skeptics who doubted that a bird could be strong enough to lift a child. The berserkers were Norse warriors who wore the skins of wolves, bears, and other animals as they entered into battle. According to legend, this practice gave them extraordinary strength and allowed them to fight in a trance of uncontrollable rage. Described as Odin's own special warriors, their furious exploits are the origin of the modern term, berserk. Which of the following have been linked to the Mothman? The answer is all of the above. In the fall of 1967, along with the Mothman encounters, there was also a rash of UFO sightings. In addition, at the TNT factory where the Mothman was thought to have a lair, men in black were allegedly spotted. After the Mothman sightings, the area was sealed for police investigation and civilians were not allowed to enter. And finally, in 1774, Shawnee Chief Cornstalk was killed while on a peace mission to nearby Fort Randolph. According to legend, as he lay dying, he put a curse on the land and its settlers. Some attribute the Mothman and the Silver Bridge tragedy to his lasting curse. From 1955 to 1996, the western region of the Gobi Desert was one of China's primary nuclear weapons testing sites. Radioactive material from the atmospheric testing spread across the desert in this region known for its fierce sandstorms. Perhaps recent sightings of the Mongolian deathworm can be rationalized as lizards mutated by the heavy nuclear fallout in the area. Sightings of the British hellhound Black Shuck date back to the time of the Vikings. This phantom black dog with flaming red eyes was the basis for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes mystery, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Holmes and Watson face off against the beast in the story's climax and discover its hellish appearance was achieved by the chemical element phosphorus. Author Bram Stoker based his fictional Dracula on the real-life Romanian prince Vlad Tepes, also known as Vlad the Impaler. He earned his moniker by killing, enslaving, and yes, impaling thousands during his violent reign in the mid-1400s. His Romanian surname, Draculia, means son of the dragon. Florida, 2001. A sewer maintenance company received this footage of a large, angry alligator being rescued from city pipes. Though many stories of these large reptiles inhabiting urban sewer systems do turn out to be myths or hoaxes, states such as Florida have legitimately reported the creatures finding their way into storm sewers, while foraging for food and a warm, moist place to stay. Released in 1973, the legend of Boggy Creek cast a spotlight on the southern Sasquatch known as the Fouke Monster. Director Charles B. Pierce reportedly borrowed a modest sum from a trucking company to finance the drive-in classic, which eventually grossed over $20 million, spawned 2 sequels, and influenced future hits like The Blair Witch Project. He shot the film on location featuring locals and actual eyewitnesses to the creature. Hypertrichosis is a medical condition that causes abnormal amounts of hair to cover the body. For hundreds of years, people with this condition were exploited by circuses and sideshows and given names like the Wolf Boy. In less enlightened times, it was believed that people who suffered from this condition were actually a different species. In 2008, a Malaysian man, angry with his neighbor after an intense argument, tried to murder him by unleashing several venomous centipedes into his bed while he slept. Although the attempted murder was unsuccessful, authorities confirmed the seriousness of the attack by charging the man with assault with a dangerous weapon. far more than just a regional legend. Some even claim the White River monster might have affected the Civil War. At that time, the White River was a major transportation route, and according to local lore, the monster was believed to be responsible for overturning a Confederate munitions boat. A triskaidekaphobic fears the number 13, a phobia exploited by horror films and literature. Some claim this fear originated with the story of the Last Supper, where 13 people were seated at the table, including the traitorous disciple, Judas. In more modern times, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt feared dining in a group of 13, and auto mogul Henry Ford refused to conduct business on Friday the 13th. Today, the age-old fear of Friday the 13th costs American businesses millions of dollars each year in cancellations and no-shows. Beginning in 1951, astronaut Gordon Cooper reported several UFO sightings. After one sighting in 1957, Cooper contacted the Pentagon with photographic evidence of a suspected alien spacecraft, expecting them to investigate. But there was never any public record of this incident. More recently, in 2008 on a British radio show, retired Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell expressed his belief that the Roswell crash was real and that governments are guilty of covering up evidence of alien encounters. The Shoshone Indians were the first to recount sightings of the Bear Lake monster, describing how it would snatch unlucky swimmers in its jaws and occasionally crawl ashore. But according to the tall tales of the Wild West, it was Pecos Bill who turned the tables on the creature in an epic wrestling match that was said to last for days before he finally defeated the beast. Two of the most famous and elusive hidden creatures have been the subject of well-publicized scams. For instance, a man confessed on his deathbed that this controversial 1934 picture of the Loch Ness Monster depicted not a creature, but a carved head and neck attached to a toy submarine. More recently, in 2008, two Georgia residents held a press conference announcing they had found the body of a Bigfoot. However, subsequently it was discovered that the corpse was actually a rubber costume filled with possum entrails. Haiti, 1937. American writer and anthropologist Zora Neale Hurston reports an encounter with a woman who villagers claim died 30 years earlier. Felicia Felix Mentor's death by sudden illness was recorded in 1907 at the age of 29. But in 1936, a disoriented woman is found wandering the streets of her small village. Relatives, including her own husband, identify the woman as Felicia Felix Mentor. This picture, taken by Hurston, is commonly regarded as the first known photograph of a zombie. Though normally confined to the deep waters of Mexico, in February of 2009, divers reported the presence of jumbo Humboldt squid with razor-sharp beaks and toothed tentacles invading the shallow waters off San Diego. One diver told of being hit in the chest, and as the creature's huge tentacles enveloped his upper body, he could feel his armored chest plate move as the squid's beak ground violently against it. Because of the squid's crimson color and aggressive nature, it has been nicknamed Diablo Rojo, or the Red Devil. According to Romanian folklore, one gypsy method for killing a strigoi goes to great lengths to ensure the undead stay dead. First, they would dig up the suspected strigoi from its grave, remove its heart and cut it in two, drive a nail into its forehead, place a clove of garlic under its tongue, then smear its body with the fat of a pig killed on St. Ignatius Day. Finally, they would turn the body face down in the coffin so that if the strigoi were to rise again, it would be headed the wrong direction. In 1949, newspapers reported a terrifying story about a 13-year-old boy exhibiting disturbing symptoms: levitation, snake-like head rotation, and welts on his body that spelled out words. A priest was called in to perform an exorcism, and ultimately, this notorious case inspired one of the greatest horror movies of all time, The Exorcist. But researchers who later examined the case concluded that his physical symptoms were much closer to those associated with poltergeist phenomena. South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, 1934. Several major newspapers report eyewitness accounts of a mysterious beast with lightning speed and the ability to leap across fields. Its malicious attacks on local pets and livestock include a trained police dog being mauled and devoured. Fearful for their lives, locals begin toting firearms to defend themselves. A search party is formed, but the creature disappears as quickly as it came. And though devil monkey sightings persist throughout the United States, to this day, its actual whereabouts cannot be confirmed. 1953, Mount Everest. Sir Edmund Hillary and his climbing partner became the first people to reach the summit of the legendary peak. But did they also cross paths with another legend? Hillary's investigation of a giant footprint he found in the snow introduced him to local tales of a large ape-like beast with incredible height and strength. The discovery compelled him to return in 1960 on a new expedition with the specific intent to find hard proof of the Yeti's existence. Hillary was able to recover a mysterious scalp that locals claimed belonged to the creature. Although it was not enough to convince him definitively, Hillary continued to be intrigued by the conviction of the Nepalese people and their belief in what they refer to as the wild man of the snows. South America, 1972. Air Force Flight 571 from Uruguay carrying 45 passengers crashes into the Andes Mountains. Nearly 30 survived the initial crash, though some fell victim to injuries and a later deadly avalanche. The survivors, including members of a rugby team, had little food and no source of heat in the harsh conditions. Faced with certain death from starvation, they were soon forced to make the ultimate decision. They fed on their fellow passengers preserved in the snow, many of whom were friends and classmates. This nightmarish ordeal stretched over 2 months before 2 of the men miraculously reached a remote village, and the last of the 16 survivors were finally rescued. Texas, 1971. A geology grad student working at Big Bend National Park makes an incredible find. A partial wing is unearthed and determined to be evidence of an entirely new species from the late Cretaceous period of North America. Weighing over 200 pounds and boasting a 40-foot wingspan, the newly discovered Quetzalcoatlus shattered all previously existing size records for pterosaurs. Because of its massive size and similarities, scientists named the creature after the legendary Aztec flying serpent, Quetzalcoatl. Paris, Michigan, 1938. A fisherman on the banks of the Muskegon River was startled by what appeared to be a pack of large feral dogs emerging from the woods. He grabbed his hunting rifle and fired a warning shot. The animals retreated, except the largest one, who stood up on its hind legs and cast a glare that sent shivers down the fisherman's spine. His story is just one of many reported encounters with a creature that shares many similarities to the beast of Bray Road. In January of 1934, the Los Angeles Times reported a story about a mining engineer who had been testing for mineral deposits when he came across a pattern of underground tunnels in the shape of a lizard. The engineer located what he believed to be a large cache of gold tablets. The shaft was flooded with water and the city closed down the project before the engineer could bring his find into the light of day. But some believe these tablets told the history of the underground Mayan lizard people, reptilians come to Earth to infiltrate the human race.